Every morning, I lace up my running shoes and hit the pavement at exactly 9 a.m. It's my ritual, a sacred hour where I escape the noise of life and clear my head. But lately, something has felt off. The world around me seems to be closing in, as if shadows are creeping closer with every step I take. My eyes dart around nervously, scanning for something, anything, that might explain this gnawing sense of unease. At first, I thought it was just paranoia, but then it started happening. Every single day, without fail, a black car drives past me at precisely 9:24 a.m. Its engine hums like a predator stalking its prey, slow enough to make me feel exposed. One morning, the car didn't just pass by, it stopped. The driver lowered their window and stared directly at me, a chilling smile spreading across their face before they sped off into the distance. That moment froze me in place, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Who were they? Why did they seem to know me? And why did I feel like I was being watched? Things got worse when I returned home after my run. There was an eerie tension in the air, almost suffocating. My wife seemed different, distant, distracted. She avoided eye contact, her movements hurried and unnatural. Then, there was the text message waiting on my phone. I know everything. Stop pretending. No name, no number, just those haunting words glaring back at me from the screen. A cold sweat broke out across my skin as my mind raced. Was she seeing someone else? Had she met another woman? The redhead I'd glimpsed near our neighborhood? The ground beneath me felt like it was crumbling. Every fiber of my being screamed that something was terribly wrong. Little did I know this was only the beginning of a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. When I finally returned home, my heart was still racing from the unsettling events of my morning run. The black car, the cryptic text message, and that eerie smile from the driver had left me on edge. But nothing could have prepared me for what awaited me inside. As I opened the door, the air felt heavy, as if the house itself was holding its breath. My wife stood in the living room, wearing nothing but a thin silk robe, her hair disheveled like she'd been pacing back and forth for hours. Her face was pale, lips trembling slightly as though she were trying to steady herself. "Honey?" I called out cautiously, stepping closer. She turned to face me but avoided meeting my eyes. "I'm just getting ready to take a shower," she said quickly, her voice wavering. Something wasn't right. This wasn't the warm welcome I usually received after my runs. It was more like an act, a performance meant to distract me. Before I even entered the house, I noticed her hastily shoving something under the couch cushion near the phone. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but my instincts screamed at me not to ignore it. Once she disappeared into the bathroom, pretending to gather towels, I moved toward the couch. Carefully lifting the cushion, I found a crumpled piece of paper with 3 chilling words scrawled across it. "Don't call anymore." My blood ran cold. Who had she been talking to? And why did she feel the need to hide it? My gaze swept the room, searching for answers. On the kitchen counter sat a glass of red wine, untouched and full, condensation dripping down its sides. How long had she been sitting here alone, nursing her thoughts? The sight of it made my stomach churn. This wasn't normal behavior. Not for her. Then, as I approached the sofa where we often sat together, I saw it. A single strand of long, fiery red hair lying innocently on the fabric. My vision blurred with rage. "What is this?" I demanded, holding up the strand of hair, my voice shaking with anger. She froze mid-step, her hand gripping the bathroom door frame. Where did you get that? She asked weakly, her tone laced with panic. You tell me! I shouted, slamming the hair onto the coffee table. Who's been here? Is someone else coming over while I'm out running every morning? Her silence was deafening. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they didn't soften my resolve. They only fueled my suspicions further. You've been lying to me, haven't you? I accused. My fists clenched so tightly they hurt. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The tension between us crackled like electricity, threatening to ignite into chaos. Whatever trust remained between us was hanging by a thread, and I knew then that our marriage might never recover from this betrayal. The tension in the room was unbearable. My wife, tears streaming down her face, finally broke the silence. It's not what you think, she pleaded, her voice trembling. She hesitated for a moment before blurting out, I was planning a Halloween surprise for you, a costume party. That's why I've been so distracted lately. Her words hung in the air like a fragile thread, waiting to snap under the weight of my suspicion. She went on to explain that the black car I'd seen every morning belonged to our neighbor, who had been helping her pick up supplies for the party. And the redhead? She continued, almost defensively. That's Sarah, my best friend since college. She's been helping me organize everything. The hair you found must have fallen off her scarf when she came over yesterday. Her explanation sounded plausible, even rehearsed, but my mind refused to let go of the doubts gnawing at me. You see, this wasn't the first time she'd lied to me about seemingly insignificant things, like forgetting to mention lunch dates with coworkers or conveniently omitting details about late-night phone calls. Those small lies had planted seeds of distrust long before today, and now they were blooming into full-blown paranoia. How can I believe you? I snapped, my voice sharp enough to cut through steel. You've lied to me before. Why should this be any different? Before she could respond, the doorbell rang, shattering the fragile calm we'd barely managed to establish. We both froze, staring at each other as if bracing for an explosion. Slowly, I walked to the door and opened it to find a man standing there, holding a bag filled with Halloween decorations. He smiled warmly, clearly oblivious to the storm brewing inside the house. Hi, I'm here to drop these off for your wife, he said cheerfully, extending the bag toward me. My blood boiled instantly. Who are you? I demanded, my voice dripping with venom. The man looked confused, glancing between me and my wife, who had appeared behind me. Oh, I'm Mark, he replied cautiously. Sarah sent me to deliver some extra props for the party. Props? I echoed, my fury escalating. Turning to my wife, I shouted, So this is your accomplice? You're dragging strangers into our home while lying to my face? Her eyes widened in shock, and she shook her head frantically. No, Jack, please listen. It's exactly what I told you. It's all for the party. But her words fell on deaf ears. My mind was consumed by betrayal and anger, painting every detail of her story as another layer of deception. Mark, sensing the hostility, quickly backed away. I'll just leave this here, he muttered, placing the bag on the porch before retreating to his car. As soon as the door slammed shut, I turned back to my wife, my chest heaving with rage. This ends now, I growled. I won't live like this anymore, with secrets, lies, and people showing up uninvited. Just as the tension between us seemed to ease, a knock at the door shattered what little peace remained. I opened it to find a stranger standing there, a man I'd never seen before. He wore an unsettling smirk, one that sent chills down my spine. I think you two need to hear something, he said coldly, stepping inside without invitation. My wife and I exchanged panicked glances, unsure of what was about to unfold. "You've both been lying," he began, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "Your marriage is built on deceit. He pointed at my wife, "have been texting someone else because you feel neglected. And you," his gaze shifted to me, piercing and accusatory, "have been sneaking around with a woman in a red hat." The room spun around me as his words hit like a freight train. How could he possibly know these things? My wife's face crumbled, tears streaming down her cheeks. She sank onto the couch, burying her head in her hands. "It's true," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I sent messages to someone, but I never met him. I swear. I just felt so alone, Jack. You're always out running or working late, and I thought you didn't care anymore." Her confession hung heavy in the air, each word slicing deeper into the fragile foundation of our relationship. Before I could respond, the neighbor from across the street burst into the house unannounced, holding up his phone triumphantly. "I knew it!" he exclaimed, shoving the screen toward us. On it was a photo, clear as day, of me sitting at a cafe with a woman wearing a bright red hat. My heart stopped. It wasn't what it looked like, but the evidence was damning. "Caught red-handed," the neighbor sneered, clearly enjoying the chaos he'd unleashed. "That's not what happened," I shouted, my voice cracking under the weight of desperation. But even as I denied it, guilt flickered in my eyes, betraying me. My wife saw it too, her tear-streaked face contorting with rage. "How dare you accuse me when you're the one cheating?" she screamed, grabbing a vase from the table and hurling it at me. It missed by inches, shattering against the wall behind me. The sound echoed like gunfire, igniting a full-blown war. Dishes flew, furniture toppled, and screams filled the air as we unleashed years of pent-up frustration and betrayal. "You ruined everything," she yelled, her voice hoarse from crying. "No, you did this," I countered, throwing a plate back at her. The once cozy living room became a battlefield, littered with broken glass and shattered dreams. Amidst the chaos, the mysterious man watched silently, his expression unreadable, as if feeding off our destruction. Finally, exhausted and trembling, we collapsed onto opposite ends of the room, breathing heavily. The damage was done, not just to our home, but to the fragile trust that had barely held us together. Neither of us spoke. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the occasional clink of falling debris. Our marriage, already teetering on the edge, now lay in ruins. The hours dragged on, each minute feeling like an eternity as the weight of our shattered trust pressed down on us. The living room was a mess. Broken glass scattered across the floor, overturned furniture, and the lingering scent of spilled wine. My wife sat on the edge of the couch, her face pale and her eyes hollow, staring into space as if trying to process everything that had just happened. I stood across from her, my hands trembling, knowing that the truth would destroy whatever fragments of our marriage still remained, but I couldn't keep lying, not after everything. "I slept with someone," I blurted out, the words tumbling out in a rush before I could stop them. Her head snapped up, her wide eyes locking onto mine, disbelief etched across her face. "A colleague," I continued, my voice cracking under the strain. "It wasn't planned. It was stupid, reckless, the stress at work, the distance between us. It all piled up, and I made the worst mistake of my life." Tears welled up in my eyes, but they did nothing to soften the blow. She didn't say a word. She didn't even blink. It was as though my confession had frozen her in place. Then, without warning, she collapsed. Her body crumpled to the floor like a marionette whose strings had been cut. Panic surged through me as I rushed to her side, shaking her gently. "Honey, wake up!" I pleaded, my voice hoarse with desperation. But she was unresponsive. Fumbling for my phone, I dialed 911, my hands slick with sweat. Neighbors, drawn by the commotion earlier, began gathering outside our door, whispering amongst themselves. Their hushed voices filtered through the walls, adding another layer of humiliation to the chaos unfolding inside. As paramedics arrived and tended to my wife, reality hit me like a freight train. This was my fault. All of it. My betrayal had pushed her to this breaking point. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. I hesitated before answering, dread pooling in my stomach. On the other end was her, the woman from the cafe, the one wearing the red hat. "You better not screw this up," she hissed, her tone venomous. "If you don't keep seeing me, I'll make sure everyone knows what you've done. Your perfect little life will be over." My knees buckled beneath me as I sank to the floor, the phone clutched tightly in my hand. How had I let it go this far? What kind of monster had I become? When the paramedics finally left with my wife stabilized but unconscious, I was left alone in the wreckage of our home. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the occasional murmur of neighbors gossiping outside. I tried to explain myself later, once she regained consciousness. Sitting beside her hospital bed, I begged for forgiveness. "Please, I'll do anything to fix this," I pleaded, my voice raw with emotion. "I love you. You're the only person who matters to me." But she didn't respond. Her gaze remained fixed on the ceiling, her expression unreadable yet painfully distant. Each second of silence felt like a dagger twisting in my chest. Finally, she turned her head slightly toward me, her eyes cold and empty. "Save your breath," she whispered, her voice devoid of any warmth. "There's nothing left to say." Those words cut deeper than anything else she could have said. They weren't angry. They were final. In that moment, I realized I'd lost her forever. No amount of pleading or promises could undo the damage I'd caused. Our marriage, once filled with laughter and love, was now a graveyard of broken dreams and shattered trust. The decision to file for divorce came after weeks of unbearable silence between us. My wife, still reeling from the betrayal I had confessed, could no longer bear the weight of our broken marriage. She sat me down one evening, her face pale but resolute, and said, "I can't do this anymore, Jack. I'm filing for divorce." Her voice was steady, devoid of emotion, as if she'd already severed the last thread connecting us. The legal process, however, proved to be anything but straightforward. Our shared assets, a house filled with memories, joint bank accounts, and even mundane household items, became battlegrounds in a war neither of us wanted to fight. Lawyers exchanged icy emails, dragging out negotiations that felt more like torture than resolution. In the meantime, I moved out. Unable to face the emptiness of our home or the judgmental stares of neighbors who now whispered behind my back, I rented a shabby apartment on the outskirts of town. It was a far cry from the life we once shared. Peeling wallpaper, a leaky faucet, and a mattress that sagged in the middle. Each night, I drowned my guilt in cheap whiskey, sitting alone in the dim glow of a flickering lamp. The walls seemed to close in around me as I replayed every mistake, every lie, every moment I'd let her down. Self-loathing became my constant companion, gnawing at me until sleep offered fleeting escape. One fateful evening, drunk and desperate, I found myself standing outside the house we used to call home. The lights were on, casting warm glows through the windows, a stark contrast to the cold despair consuming me. Summoning what little courage I had left, I knocked on the door. When she opened it, her eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with suspicion. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger and fear. I need to talk to you," I slurred, swaying unsteadily. "Please, give me one more chance. I'll fix everything, I swear." Tears streamed down my face as I reached for her hand, but she recoiled, disgust etched across her features. "You're drunk," she spat. "Leave before I call the police." But I couldn't leave. Not yet. Not when I felt so close to redemption. "Don't do this," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "I love you. Without you, I'm nothing. Please don't throw away everything we had." My words tumbled out incoherently, fueled by alcohol and desperation. But instead of softening her heart, they only heightened her fear. Before I knew it, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Within minutes, red and blue lights flashed outside, illuminating the quiet suburban street. Neighbors peeked through their curtains, phones in hand, eager to capture the drama unfolding before them. Officers approached cautiously, their flashlights trained on me as they ordered me to step away from the door. Humiliated and defeated, I complied, my drunken stupor giving way to a crushing sense of reality. As handcuffs clicked around my wrists, I caught one final glimpse of her face, etched with pain, anger, and perhaps a hint of regret. The incident quickly spiraled into a scandal that spread like wildfire across social media. Photos of me being led away in handcuffs went viral, accompanied by captions mocking my drunken state and labeling me a pathetic cheater. Comments poured in, some condemning my actions, others sympathizing with my ex-wife's plight. Overnight, I became the poster child for failed marriages and toxic relationships. Friends distanced themselves, colleagues avoided eye contact, and strangers judged me based on snippets of a story they didn't fully understand. Back in my squalid apartment, I scrolled through the endless stream of notifications, each one a dagger to my already shattered soul. Messages from anonymous trolls mocked my attempts at reconciliation, while news articles dissected every detail of our crumbling marriage. One headline read, "From betrayal to arrest, the fall of a once happy couple." Reading those words felt like reliving the nightmare over and over again. In the aftermath of the scandal, my wife found solace in her closest confidant, Sarah, the same red-haired woman who had been helping her plan the ill-fated Halloween surprise. One evening, as they sat together on the porch of Sarah's modest home, glasses of wine in hand, the conversation turned to matters of trust and honesty. The air was thick with unspoken tension, but Sarah's voice cut through it like a blade. "You know," she began, her tone measured yet piercing, "truth starts with oneself. You have to face your own mistakes before you can expect anyone else to do the same." My wife looked at her, eyes brimming with tears. "But how do I even begin to rebuild after everything that's happened? He lied to me, Sarah. He betrayed me in ways I never thought possible." Her voice cracked under the weight of her pain, each word heavy with betrayal. Sarah sighed deeply, setting her glass down on the wooden railing. For a moment, she stared off into the distance, her expression clouded with memories. Then, she spoke again, her voice softer but laced with regret. "Let me tell you something I've never told anyone, not even you," she confessed. "Years ago, I destroyed a relationship because I couldn't be honest. With him or with myself, I cheated on my partner. Not because I didn't love him, but because I was too afraid to admit that I wasn't happy. Instead of confronting my feelings, I ran from them, and in doing so, I ruined everything. The revelation hung heavily between them, the cicadas chirping faintly in the background. My wife's eyes widened in shock. She had always seen Sarah as this pillar of strength, someone who seemed untouchable by life's chaos. To hear her confess such vulnerability was both unsettling and profoundly humanizing. I carried that guilt for years. Sarah continued, her voice trembling slightly. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw the person who had thrown away something precious because she was too scared to face the truth. And when he finally walked away, I realized it wasn't just his loss. It was mine too. I lost the chance to fix things, to grow, to become better. Her words struck a chord deep within my wife. She thought about all the lies, the secrets, the shattered dreams that now defined her marriage. Could she ever forgive me? More importantly, could she forgive herself for staying silent when she suspected something was wrong? The weight of unresolved emotions pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. Running away doesn't solve anything, Sarah concluded, turning to meet my wife's gaze. It only drags the pain along with you. Stop lying to yourself and you'll stop lying to others. Can you handle that? For a long moment, my wife said nothing. The question hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. Finally, she nodded, though uncertainty lingered in her eyes. I don't know if I'm strong enough, she admitted quietly. But maybe it's time I tried. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.